Hi everyone, welcome to Programming is Fun. My name is Anas and in this tutorial I'm going to talk about some commonly used data types in C++ and also going to talk about what is typecast in C++. So let's begin. So if you are working with the whole number, we will use integer type data type, and the keyword for integer in C++ is int, and the variable name, whatever variable name you want, num is equal to 10. Now this variable num will store an integer because the data type of this variable is integer. So let me see out it on the console screen, see out num over here, and you will see that it will print on console 10. And here you go, 10. So whenever you are working with the whole numbers, you must have to declare the variable data type integer, and the integer data type is signed by default. There is two types, signed and unsigned. You can make it unsigned when you are working with a positive integer, so make it unsigned. Like you want to take an age of the user, so age wouldn't be negative, so you in unsigned integer, and then build and run. Unsigned integer will increase the range of the integer data type, and it would never take the negative value. For example, -10, you would never take the -10 because we have declared unsigned integer. It will gives us a garbage value. Let me close this, and here you will see it will gives us a garbage value because unsigned integer will never take a negative value. But if you write it where only the integer is by default signed, so you don't have to write signed int. If now you will write -10 and build and run it again, you will see a -10. So this was the basics of integer, and if whenever you are working with the whole numbers, you always have to make a data type of the variable integer, and the keyword for integer is int. So if you want to work with fractional values, so integer will not store the fractional value. Let me give you an example. 10.12, it will return only 10 because you are using the data type integer. To store this decimal digits, you always have to write float. Float is a data type which can store the decimal points, and it is sufficient for store up to 7 digits decimals, including the left side of the decimal point and the right side of the decimal point. So here you will see 10.12. Here is another data type for the fractional values called double. Double and float are basically same, but the difference in double and float is that the float can store the decimal digits up to 15. Means if you are working with the larger decimal points, so always use double. But if you are working with the smaller decimal digits, so then you can write float. Now build and run. Here you say 10.10. Double can reduce the chances of errors, so always use double whenever you are working with the fractionals. A float or a double can also be used as a scientific number with an e, which will be indicates power of 10. Let's suppose 10 e2. This will gives us 1000 on the console screen. 1000 over here. Because this is similar that 10 into 10 raised power of 2. This is similar to this. So you can also use double and float as a scientific number also. But don't forget this e. This e represents the 10. Now for character, for example, you are working on a result of a student, so you might take his/her grade. So for that you always need char. Char basically means character, and it will store only one letter or one number, only because it contains one byte. So character grade is equal to, and always write the grade or anything you are writing character in a single quote, otherwise you will get an error. Grade A, and see out that grade over here, see out grade. Now we will say it will print A. Let's suppose you write over here A and B. Now B will be printed because A will be overwritten by the B, because character can store only one letter B over here. So if you are working with the characters, so always write the char data type. And for example, you want to store the name of the student. For that, you have to use the data type called string. String is the sequence of characters. So change this here to name, and write it John, and remove this over here and print name. And now you will see it will works fine and returns John over here. Alright, so whenever you are working with the strings, you always have to write in the double quotes, like programming is fun and build in that. You will say programming is fun. So always remember that whenever you are working with the characters, you use single quotations, and whenever you are working with the strings, you always have to write in the quotations. But if you are familiar with Python, you don't have to declare the data types like string or integers, but in C++ this is compulsory to give the data type to the variable. So now if you want to take so now for example, if you are working with the conditional loops, you want condition like true or false. For that we use the boolean. For boolean we have a keyword here, bool. We always use bool for the keywords, and you want to check either the statement is true or false. I make it true and see out check. It will return 1 because 1 means true. So here you go and you see 1. If you make it false, you will see it will return 0 because 0 means false. I will discuss about this boolean in detail in my coming lectures, in where I will tell you about loops and if-else statements and nested if-else statement, and we will use this boolean to check whether the statement is true or false. So I will discuss this boolean in detail in my upcoming videos. After that, there are 4 types of modifiers, which are long, unsigned, and short, and long. Whenever you are working on a project in which memory is a high priority, you should modify your data types. I will give you example over here for integer. If you will write unsigned long int, it will store a large number of positive integers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and here you will see out. Oops, I forget over here the variable. You can name variable anything. And now build and run it, and you will see it will print up. So you can also modify other data types with your requirements. So this was the basics of the data types in C++, and now there is something called the typecast. When you are working with the data types, you have to work with the typecast also. So there are 2 types of typecasting. One is implicit typecasting, also known as automatic type conversion, because it is done by the compiler on its own. And the second type of typecasting is explicit typecasting. It is user defined, and we use it when we want the output in a particular data type. Let me give you an example of implicit typecast first. For example, int num is equal to 5 and character alpha is equal to a, and cout num plus alpha. Now what will happen over here? The compiler will automatically change this alpha data type from character to integer, and the ASCII of this capital A is 65. So 65 plus 5, it will returns the 70 on the console screen. Because this type of typecasting will be done by the compiler, it will turn the character data type to the integer data type. Let's build and run it, and you will see that it will return 70 over here, 70. So this type of typecasting is done by the compiler, so that's why it is also called the automatic type conversion. Now the second type of typecasting is explicit typecasting. for that. For example, double none is equal to 20.02. Let's go for that. And then cout none plus 10. It would return 30.02. Here you go, 30.02. But I want only the integer part of this. For that I will use the explicit typecast. I will write int, and now you will see it will only return 30. Here you go, 30. This type of typecast over here is called the functional style typecasting. There is another type of typecasting in it, and this is called the C style typecasting. But both will work fine. 30 over here. So this was the basics of typecasting in C++. There are two types of typecasting. One is implicit typecasting, which is done by the compiler, and one is the explicit typecasting, which is done by the user. So this was the basics of data types and typecasting in C++. I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you. Please give me a like and subscribe, and if you have any query about my lecture, you can comment down below. And until next time, take care and bye.